apart from being Auburn University's president and apart from your love for golf, which we all know about, who is President Gogue?
Oh, gosh, that's hard to answer. You know, you spend all your time working at a university. It's really almost a 24/7 type of position. I would have to say the kind of things that you really enjoy are going out and working with alumni and see the successes that they have had. And some people would consider that work-related, but to hear their stories, to hear the things they've been able to do with an Auburn education is almost heartwarming. I mean, it really is. When you see the things that grew up in some small little town, came up here, got an education, and now they run corporations, they run major activities in this country. So that sort of keeps your juices going, makes you excited. So I enjoy that. I guess probably the question you were looking for is my spouse is particularly important to me. She told me when I came here after we had been here a short period of time, this is a really good place, which we knew. And whatever you do, try not to mess it up. And so, you know, that's been sort of a guiding principle. Got 2 big dogs that I spend a lot of time with. So a lot of things.
Most students don't really understand exactly what the role of an Auburn University president. So what does your day-to-day look like?
You probably spend maybe 60% of your time in trying to raise funds for the institution. And I have to tell you, from a student perspective, the easiest funds to raise are scholarships for students. People care about our students and want to support those. So about 60% would be in fundraising, probably 20% would be working with Montgomery and working in Washington, again, trying to raise funds, trying to deal with legislative activities that really affect the university. And then about 20% is what most people think is 100% of your job. And to some extent, a large portion of it is probably ceremonial. I always use there's a statement, I think it's by Yogi Berra, that says success is 50% showing up and 50% being there. So the expectation is that you be at a lot of things. There's not a great expectation that you expound and that you're brilliant, but that you show up. And so you spend a lot of time doing that. And then to answer your question, there are a few times each year in which there are some key decisions that you have to make. And so you're engaged in the decision-making process at the appropriate time.
As an Auburn student currently, I remember first coming to Auburn and just being so attracted to the campus. As we understand that you're an Auburn student, what first made you want to go to Auburn?
I grew up in Georgia, and I had grandparents that lived in Arkansas. And so those summer trips, we came through Auburn. And so Auburn was the school that I knew the most about. And just as you mentioned, the attractiveness and the way it looks, that was probably the thing that I noticed the most, just that it felt like a college campus. And I was away for many years. And when you come back, the campus is more beautiful today than it was when I was a student. But I have to tell you, the feel of the campus is very much the way it was decades ago. And so that's the part that sort of attracts you and keeps you. We often tell students when we go out to high schools, we're interested in you coming to Auburn if you want to come to Auburn. And you need to know it's not just a 4-year degree plan. It's a lifelong commitment to be involved. And I'm not saying just give money and all that, but be involved, care about it, express yourself, make sure that people know that you're from Auburn.
How has Auburn changed since your time spent here as a student?
Well, it's a lot prettier. It's the campus, the buildings, the facilities, I have to admit, they're really just gorgeous. And I'm on a lot of college campuses, and I think I can be somewhat objective, but it's just beautiful. So to me, it's a beautiful campus. Some of the things that students are usually surprised, when I came, Rolling Toomer's Corner was not something that was done except for away games, and it was to sort of be the signal that we had won the ball game. There were power lines. You didn't roll the trees, you rolled the power lines in that area. And so the rolling of the tree was not nearly the event that it is today. Albee had not yet come on the scene when I was here, so we didn't have Albee. The eagle didn't fly at football games. And so it was very different. Some of the things that we take today as very long-term traditions are actually, in my mind, fairly short-term traditions, but will be traditions for decades to come.
Those are some of my favorite traditions at Auburn. Another thing we noticed was in 1964, that was the first year Auburn was integrated. So since that was during your time at Auburn, how has that affected your views on diversity and inclusion?
Well, you have to go back sort of historically. The land-grant universities, which Auburn is a member. So remember, we were created during the Civil War. 1862 is the act that really drives the philosophy and the thinking of Auburn. It's the Morrill Act. These were considered to be universities that are the New South, very different. And so Auburn went forth and actually hired people from the North and took federal money, and that was very controversial within these land-grant universities like Auburn in the South. And so we have a long track record that is very different. We admitted women in 1892, which was the first public university in the South to do that. So we took that charge of men and women that's in the Morrill Act much more seriously than most. And so we moved in that direction. When you move to the civil rights era and you deal with the issues that went on in this country, you can go to other states in which, I'll use South Carolina as an example. The University of South Carolina, when it integrated that campus, it was a huge event with state patrol and police, and everybody remembers that lived in South Carolina at the time. Clemson is the land-grant university. Clemson integrated with no fanfare. If you come to Auburn, we integrated with no fanfare. And our colleague across the state had the governor standing in the door to bar the entry. You go to Mississippi, the land-grant school there is Mississippi State. It was a non-event. You go to Ole Miss and people actually died during that integration. So we've always had a very different view of integration and inclusion and diversity at land-grant schools as compared to our colleagues.
As your tenure comes to an end, how do you think Auburn stands in terms of diversity?
When you look at the data, it would show that Auburn needs to increase the number of international students. It shows that Auburn should need to increase the number of Hispanic students. It shows that Auburn should increase the number of Asian American students. Our numbers compared to peers are lower in those categories. In African American students, our numbers are actually equal to peers. So those numbers, if you were going to concentrate, you'd look at those categories. When I look at diversity and inclusion, I also look at the fact that we have Muslim student organizations on campus. We have the GBLTQ organizations on campus. We have Jewish student organizations. We have a whole plethora of Protestant religious organizations on this campus. A protected class is veterans, and we have about 1,000 veterans on campus. And so when I look at diversity and inclusion, I'm particularly interested, well, the student group over here, you name the group, are they interacting with the veterans? That's a very different perspective. And so to me, that's what makes college so rich and so exciting, is the differences to come together and discuss. The thing that you hate the most as a president, and it's tough to address, is when you go into a food service area, and I look over here, and all my Latino students are sitting at this table. My African American kids are sitting over here, and so forth. You don't want that to happen, and so that's the hard part of how do you get people to engage and to talk and to discuss and to have different views, and that's important. So diversity issues, inclusion issues are never going to be resolved in complete satisfaction, and we'll say we've declared success. But I have to say that in my career, 50 years nearly as a student and as an administrator in higher ed, there's been remarkable progress, and we have more to do.
Diversity is something that we are so thankful that it has changed since 1964.
Absolutely.
On a different note, one of the coolest things we have learned that you do during your presidency is that you also teach a graduate course. How does that affect the way that you run this university?
Well, before I ever became a president, the guy I worked for was president at Clemson. And I remember he sent me up to Cornell to see the president there, and President Rhodes told me that he wanted to give me one piece of advice. And I said, what is that? And he said, always teach a course. And I said, well, why would you do that? And I said, you got all these other things and everything. He said, no, if you teach your course, you control your schedule. And I said, what do you mean? And he said, there is such respect for a faculty member teaching a course. And he was in New York, and he said, if the CEO of IBM calls me and wants to meet with me this week, he said, if I tell them I'd love to come, but I have my class this week, they say, oh, I understand completely. And so you control your schedule when you teach a class. Being in the classroom keeps you close to the views and the attitudes and views of students. And it allows you to realize that we're in great shape in this country. Kids are getting smarter each year. I mean, I'm just, there's people out there that say things are terrible and things are bad. Kids are getting smarter every single year. Think about Auburn. We get 24,000 applications. We're going to admit about 4,500 freshmen. Some people fuss at public schools and that they're not doing a good job. It's hard for us at Auburn to say that. We get the very best and brightest out of the state of Alabama. We get far more applications than we can serve at this university. And unlike many schools, we offer no remedial work, so they come in very qualified and have a great chance to be successful at Auburn. So being close to the academic side, being in the classroom is something that I've always enjoyed. I taught when I was at Clemson, I taught when I was in Utah, I taught when in New Mexico and at Houston. So it's always been fun to me.
Apart from being inside of the classroom, we understand that you have so many other responsibilities as president. Mm-hmm. Is there a reason for why you created your open door policy?
No, not really. I've just always felt that, if somebody wants to come see you and fuss or be happy or just come in, that they should be able to. So I actually learn a lot. I usually they come to ask me some questions, but I get to ask them some questions too. And it's just fun to interact, and you get all sorts of people. You get students, but you get people from the community. You get alumni that happen to come back and come down, walk in, and so you have a chance to sit and talk. On the diversity thing, one of the things that I have really never mentioned publicly, but it shows you that Auburn did the right thing. We interact with Alabama A&M. In fact, the Cooperative Extension Service, which is a part of the university, it's jointly administered by me as president of Auburn and the president of Alabama A&M, Dr. Andrew Hugini. And so we were up there at a meeting, I guess, 7-8 years ago, and President Hugini said to me, why won't Auburn play football against us? And I said, I don't know, why don't we? And so I came back and I mentioned to Jay Jacobs, we should play a game with them rather than bring these other out-of-state schools in here and play the game. And there's always a premium when you pay for those games. And he said, yeah, let's do it. And so we did it. And after we did it, then it became apparent it was the first time that any majority white university in this state had ever played one of our minority schools. And we play them again this week. And so this is the second time, and I think I saw on the schedule in the future that we have Alabama State that we'll play at some point in the future. That's important to send a symbol or send a statement to our students and our faculty and our staff that this is important.
During your time spent at Auburn, what is your proudest moment here?
My proudest moment would be the success of the students and the faculty. You live vicariously through your students and through your faculty. When I look at the things that our faculty achieve in research, and I see what they've done, it's brilliant, and you're excited about it, and so you feel good about it. Your job as president is try to get rid of the barriers that keep them from doing their job as well as they can. And when I see students, and I look at the number of postgraduate prestigious fellowships that our students win, I'm just amazed. Rhodes finalists, Rhodes Scholar winners, Truman, Goldwater, Millennium Scholarships through the Gates Foundation, Fulbrights. The numbers are fantastic, and we'll continue to grow those numbers. So you live your life in terms of the things that really count, research and teaching and success. You live it vicariously through the people that work in the university. So that'd be my proudest achievement.
On the flip side, we understand that everything doesn't really run as smooth as we always plan. Is there something you wish you could have done that you didn't accomplish during your time as president?
When I went out last spring and visited with students, various student groups, so we visited with virtually, we offered up to visit with a variety of student groups so the Black Student Union, the Black Engineering Group, the Muslim students, GBLTQ, the vegan groups, the Latino students, and so forth. Lots of different groups. And we talked about campus safety. We talked about how they felt security-wise. We talked about if they've been harassed or those kind of discussions. And so I got good responses from the students. They felt relatively safe. They had not been harassed. So, feeling good. So I said, well, we must be doing everything really good. What are there any problems? And hands went up all over the place. I said, oh, gee, I shouldn't have asked that question. And they don't like parking and they don't like food services. So, those are things that we still have work to do. New contract on food services comes up in the next couple of years. And while I think we do a good job, students change in their perceptions and what they want. So we've got to constantly do the right thing to make sure our food services improves. And as successful as the bus service, Tiger Transit has been, there's still issues. And there are times in which a student, that's not the best way to get to campus, and they do need to bring a car, and they do need to park it at a reasonable place, and they do need to do that. So parking is always going to be an issue, but we probably hadn't done it as well as we should have.
That is awesome that we're able to acknowledge that that is an issue, and in response we can make a change upon that.
Absolutely.
This week we actually went out and talked to some different Auburn students and asked what they wanted to ask you. So Trey, a political science major, wants to know how Auburn has shaped your life.
Came here from, I'm a first generation college student, so I came to Auburn. Parents did not go to college. And so I would have to say growing up in a rural, small town and coming here and just simply interacting with kids from major cities and from even back a long time ago, we had a lot of out-of-state students. So there were kids from Atlanta and Birmingham, New Orleans and Houston and wherever. That shapes your perceptions on a variety of things at the local level. Then when you get into the classrooms, I'd have to say, having worked at 7 different universities, the commitment of faculty to student success is greater here than any place I've ever worked. I was not a great student when I arrived. I would not be admitted to Auburn today. Y'all have increased your standards so much. But anyway, I came in and just about flunked out my freshman year. I got a letter from the registrar, and the registrar said to me that if you want to come back for your sophomore year, you need to come back for summer school. So I had to go to summer school to get my grades up enough to come back for the sophomore year. And I would just have to say that faculty became involved. They were as committed to me getting through and graduating as I was. And so that's very unique. And so I guess that caring spirit is something that, and going to other universities and all, you've tried to impart, that's important. And they also imparted something that, that I believe, I'm not sure other people believe, was that while you're at college, take the courses that you're least interested in as elective and that are the most demanding. And the reason is you develop immense confidence in being successful in things that you're not particularly interested in and that are particularly tough. In my case, I took 3 years of chemistry. And I didn't want to be a chemist, but I had struggled in my very first chemistry course here. So I ended up taking a year of biochemistry and physical chemistry and organic chemistry. And so it's one of those things that imparted in me that it was difficult and something I didn't like, but I knew I developed a way to learn it. And so I knew that in the rest of my life there'd be things that I didn't really like, wasn't really interested in, but it was a way for me to try to realize that you can do it.
That brings a lot of encouragement to students who may be taking classes that are a little more difficult. Okay, our next question is, Peter, a journalism major, wants to know what your favorite classes that you took at Auburn.
The most, I guess the class that I remember the most, that I disliked the most, was one in professional and technical writing. Okay? So I had done poorly in my freshman year. I came into this course in communications today, I guess it's probably be called. I had started studying my sophomore year, and I was making pretty good grades, and so I was in this class in professional technical writing, and I'd written. You weren't typing; you'd handwrite these things. So my handwriting wasn't very good. So this class started at 9 o'clock. As I recall, it was in Haley Center, and so I go over to the class, and I read this, and I had a good grade in this course, and so I said, it's going to be hard for him to read this. I need to rewrite this thing. And so I got to the class, and so what I did is went outside, and there was a vacant desk, and so I wrote it very carefully where it would be just really, really nicely done. So the class got over, the bell rang or whatever, so I go in and I give him, I said, this is my paper, and he says, what is this? And I said, is this the paper that was due today? And he says, Mr. Gogue, it was due at 9 o'clock. It's now 9:50. F. And dropped it in the trash can. And I thought it was unfair. I didn't like it. I ended up making a C, as I recall, in the course. I went from an A to a C over this one paper. And the lesson you learn was, I am always early. I am never going to be late again for my whole life. So people laugh. If you ask the president's cabinet, supposed to start at 9 o'clock. We sometimes started at 8:55 just to get things started early. So it taught me timeliness and to be early. General Burgess is one of the people that's come to campus in the last couple of years, and his comment to me was, if you're on time, you're late. And so that's a minor thing, but throughout life, it's taught me, that's an important aspect of what you do.
Time management is something that students learn very quickly during their freshman semester of Auburn even. Okay, our next question is, Meredith, an English major, wants to know what your favorite golf course is in Auburn.
The one I always, there are four of us that go play fairly often, and we like the University Club. It's pretty. They've made a lot of improvements lately, so that would probably be our favorite. The Robert Trent Jones courses are gorgeous. None of us are a member of the country clubs, either the Sagahatchee or Moore's Mill, but we occasionally get to play there, and those are beautiful courses too. So there are lots of really pretty courses. I've always asked them, I want to go play at, Tall Pines? There's a public course.
Indian
Pines, yeah. None of them will ever go play with me there. They always say it takes too long, that it's so crowded. But great number of courses. We even played at the Links course out on South College before too. So lots of courses, and they're all fun, they're all different. Just wish my game was better.
To finish things off,
Sure.
Is there a message that you want to leave with the Auburn body?
I would simply say, I get emotional. so I can't do it. I'll just say War Eagle.
Thank you so much for coming in. We appreciate it.